Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Welcome everybody to another amazing celebration of you. And as always, I always like to pause at the start and just do a huge shout out to all of the incredible people around the world that are taking the time to listen to this show and hear the amazing stories. We currently have people listening from over 87 countries around the world, and men, women, families. I'm just blown away at the individuals that are taking the time, because you and I both know you just might hear a story that will inspire you, give you hope, or possibly someone you care about or love. So today, I get excited about my guests, and everybody knows I get goosies and I get all jazzed up. There are times in our life that you need to always remember you never know who you're going to meet, and be open to the serendipitous divine moments, because every human being has something amazing to offer this world. And it wasn't too long ago that I had the honor and privilege of meeting an extraordinary woman who I keep saying, and now she's going to die laughing before I even introduce her. She, to me, is the epitome of what an authentic leader is truly looking and living like in our world. So it is an honor today to introduce you to Dr. Terri Cooper, the actual Chief Inclusion Officer for Deloitte US. Terri, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to join you today.
You and I, when we met that day on a stage, and I had the opportunity to be graced by your brilliance and your authentic heart, Terri. And I remember afterwards I grabbed you and said, you have to be on my show. The world needs to know who you are. I know the world knows you already, but even more people need to know who you are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And in honoring, you're doing, let's face it, you've done a lot in your career. You continue to be on this incredible journey of bringing your heart and brilliance to all of the companies and the firms globally that you work with. You are passionate about inclusion right now, and I know you have a tremendous background in the healthcare. Talk to me and share with me and all of the listeners what you're most passionate about right now, and how are your days and your time being spent as you lead inclusion?
Yeah, so there are really sort of three areas that I'm really laser focused on and really passionate about. And one of them is, and it's something that I've spent my whole career really being focused on, and that is creating an environment where women can truly thrive. Having been one of those women who was surrounded most of my career in an environment really dominated by men, I've really always felt very strongly around how I want to pay it forward and really help other women in the work environment be able to connect, to feel as though they can belong, be their authentic selves, but most importantly, that they're able to grow and to achieve their ultimate dreams and aspirations. And then more recently, really linked closely to that is not only really focusing on women, but also focusing on individuals of different ethnic backgrounds and really being able to help them as well. And I think that spans initially from my sort of focus on women and women of color, and now really recognizing that I really want to be able to support all individuals that are at times are in a situation where it's more difficult for them to actually be successful within many of the environments that we all work in. And the third piece that's linked to that I really believe is important is the only way we're going to do that is by truly creating an inclusive environment. And so to me, they're all tied together around really driving, whether it's at Deloitte or whether it's working with my other colleagues in different companies, etc. It's really around driving this inclusive culture.
And I think that's the actual trigger that I just don't want anybody to miss, Terri, is you really are passionate about inclusion, and you're not just talking about it, you're actually doing it. And I just want people that are listening to realize there are large firms, small companies, and big global firms, just like who Terri's with right now, that are making a difference and saying it's time that everyone's included. And I think that really spoke to my heart, because I'm very passionate about the women and women in leadership too, which I think is where our hearts got connected. And then really understanding, wow, this is big. And every human being has something beautiful and brilliant to bring to the table, right? And what are we doing to shine the spotlight? And I'm just so excited about the work you're doing. Now, the part that really gets me, and the part that I love and adore, is that your journey, and people look at you, Terri, and let's face it, you're an amazing woman in a key leadership position, and they just assume, wow, your life must be amazing, like this perfect leadership role, and everything's probably aligned and gotten you there just perfectly. And I remember that day, interviewing you on stage, and it's like, oh, where would you like to start? What part has been perfect, right?
Exactly.
And that's what makes it so great, though, is that we all have a story. And, I'd love for you to take us back, and maybe this goes back to even, I don't know, your early childhood, maybe as a young woman, maybe in school, or maybe in your professional career early on. Where and what was a pivotal moment for you that potentially had a lot to do with the work you're doing today? Can you take us back and share a pivotal moment in your journey?
Sure. So it's really interesting that, because I shared when we were together, I was sharing that I really came from very, very humble beginnings. So my parents weren't particularly well educated. It was very much a working class family. My father probably had the reading, writing age of an 11-year-old. And yet from very, very early on, they were absolutely adamant that education was really important, and really wanted both my sister and I to be as successful as we possibly could be. And despite the fact that my father's education was very limited, right from a very early age, he would encourage me to try anything and everything. I really wasn't particularly a girly girl. I loved being with my dad. I loved doing sort of bricklaying and digging trenches and washing cars and all manner of things. And I think I must have driven him absolutely crazy, because I would ask why all the time. Why are you doing that? Why are we doing this? And he never, ever lost patience with me. He would spend hours really teaching me how to do various things, and really encouraged me around everything that I could do, and was unbelievably proud. And I think the fact that I knew that I had this safety blanket, and he used to always say to me, yes, you can. If I ever had any doubts, it was yes, you can. And he was really the major inspiration right from the very start. I was then at an all-girls grammar school in the UK. And again, I had another incredibly strong male sponsor. My chemistry teacher, I think, saw the passion that I had for science at that time, recognized that, my parents really didn't have a lot of experience around how you could apply for universities, etc. And he really took me under his wing and really helped with my college applications, etc. And as a result of that, I was the very first member of my entire family ever to go off to university. I went off to join honors chemistry and pharmacology. My first year class at university, there were about 300 students, of which only 10 were women. So it was like an amazing achievement there as well. But having these two men, my dad being the real sort of individual that just instilled confidence in me all the time, and having this amazing chemistry master from the age of like 11 to 18 that just really groomed and supported me was just absolutely phenomenal. I really owe so much to both of them. Sadly, they've both passed, but they really were the two individuals that really made me who I am today.
Do you know what's so beautiful about what you just shared? And I'm still giggling and smiling because I'm picturing you as a little girl laying bricks, right? Badly,
I should add. Badly.
No, it's such a beautiful picture, right? Of you saying, this is who I was, and right. And saying, and I'm so grateful for that time in my life, because it's made you this rich character of who you are today. And when I use the word rich, I mean as the full, resistant, resilient, wonderful, like hardworking person. And so I'm loving that visual. You also said something that I just don't want anyone to miss, Terri. And you gave us the background and the journey of two people, just two individuals who were incredibly instrumental and impactful in your life. And as I was listening to you, I closed my eyes and I was thinking, isn't there something amazing if we could all reflect and pause for a moment? I call them our balcony people. You know, who have been the balcony people for you? And I mean, if you picture a balcony and you look up, who's been there to cheer you on and champion you and believe in you and never give up, right? And
exactly.
Yeah. And so for anybody listening, I would love for people to just think and pause, you know, whether it's during you're listening to the show or afterwards, take a few minutes of mindfulness and just be alone and get out a piece of paper and think about the people, just like Terri shared, her father, a chemistry master early in her age, you know, growing up. You know, when I think about who they've been in my life, we don't thank those people enough. And if they are living, why not send a note, right? Let someone know what they've done for you. And Terri, I have to say to just the two people that I know are no longer living, you know, what could we do to let the people that are part of their life, right? The influence that this man had in your life. I mean, I don't know who's still living in his world, but can you imagine him receiving a card, or like a daughter or a son of his getting a card out of the clear blue? Not that I'm telling you to go do this. I'm just saying, right? Can you imagine the impact then when people know the gift they've been on us? It's powerful.
Very. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, just, we could all do that. So then so I love this. And this is a big part of who you are in your journey. And I know a lot of women, as I do so much work in women in leadership. And one of the things that I think so many women see when they meet you is, wow, how have you managed to have it all? How do you manage to have the balance? Every woman seeking balance, whether you've had a family or not, or whatever those things that have happened in your life. And I love your authentic story of, well, it's about choices. And sometimes we don't know those choices, right?
Exactly. And I would just like to add, it's very easy to look at individuals and think, wow, they have it all. But I would actually encourage people to be careful about doing that. And, you know, Holly's aware of my story, but I think, you know, when individuals look at me to a large extent, I assume that they look and think, well, here's a successful white woman, and they know that I don't have children, although I'm in a beautiful marriage. And I, for many, many years, I was very sensitive about the fact that I think individuals would look at me and say, well, she was, you know, the reason she's been so successful is because she didn't take time out to have children, that she chose her career over children. And that's taken me a long time to actually come to terms with in addressing that, because, as you know, Holly, if I could have had children, that would have been just the most amazing experience. And it still leaves somewhat of a hole in my heart. It was a passion that I would have loved to have been able to have had children, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. And I did go through one term of IVF. And at the end of that, my husband and I decided that we were really blessed with each other, really blessed to have a stepdaughter from his previous marriage, and that we decided that it was time to let that dream lie, but to move on and to be positive. And that was another reason why I have such a passion as well around inclusion and in particular supporting women, because I look at all of the women, and I know my Deloitte colleagues know this because I share it with them all the time, but certainly with our younger women within our practice, anybody that I can help, I feel like I'm their mother hen, you know, in a way. It's trying to think about my heritage through them, that I can say that I have had a really major impact. And part of the reason I always wanted to share this story is that to remind people not to assume or to be judgmental around how they see somebody, because there's always a story behind. And, you know, I don't believe everybody has everything at any one point in time. We've all had to make choices in our lives. But I do believe most heartily, and maybe it's going a little bit more spiritual in that regard, that we make the right choices and we get blessings and rewards by doing different things. And I found my reward through really supporting others and just getting so much joy out of watching other women and minority individuals be successful as I would have done if I'd had my own children.
And talk about the blessing, right? Unbeknownst to you, God had a much bigger plan. There were going to be so many amazing women blessed by you, right? And when you can finally see that, and this is what I so appreciate, Terri, as you did say, it took many, many years for you to talk about this and share it. And what you found, I'm sure, like we witnessed in a room, is how many people just sit with tears coming down their face saying, you've been there, I'm there too, and you've been there, right? Like people, when we can peel back the layers of the onion and be truly authentic. And like you said, everybody has a story, and we probably have multiple stories. It's when
exactly
we're right. It's when we're willing to, because it took me, I shared this with you when we were together. It took me till about 2 years ago to start talking about some very dark times of my past. And I didn't know, was I living in, was it shame that I didn't want to talk about it? Was I worried what people would think, or was it just not necessary? And what I found, just like you, Terri, is that when we are authentic and real, we heal and we help others heal and we give them hope. And you are truly, when I get so excited, and I know I keep saying it and you always giggle, but I just wish I could take you and put you out in front of the whole world and go, you want to know what authentic leadership looks like? Here it is, everybody. It's truly being the authentic version of you. And that is what you're so passionate about with inclusion, right? And empowered well-being, and really helping people stop feeling that they have to fit in to this like perfect description and prescription. It's more about owning your voice and owning who you are. And you're passionate about that, right? That's your thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always use the analogy as well. And I think, Holly, you heard me say this before, that I think some of our younger women look at women like myself and yourself and our other female leaders at Deloitte, and use the analogy that we look like ducks on a lake. And they think as we're swimming across, we look so graceful and it all looks so easy. And I think what they forget is underneath, we have our little feet are going like the clappers underneath, trying to keep everything together. But somehow we give this sort of impression of like, we just sail through life, and it's really not that easy. And we have as many challenges as anybody else. But I think we've just come to terms with how we can actually try and put them into balance and maintain some level of normalcy as much as possible.
And I still love that. I love that visual. Do you hear me giggling? Because you did share that. And there isn't a person. And let's face it, I think that's very non-gender, right? That's women and men, how we are showing up, right, to the world. And yet underneath, we look like these graceful ducks. And yet our feet are going 100 miles an hour going, can I do this? Can I keep up? And yet part of this whole movement of empowered well-being and really helping people, like, what does that mean? Well, it means something different for everyone, and getting balance in your life. And you and I talked about this, is really about having boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to. And one of the things that I love too is, and I've read you've posted some amazing articles out there on LinkedIn, and you were sharing about just having the balance for you is, will you share with us your ritual that you try to end every day with? This one tiny ritual I love.
Yeah, so I think most of people know that as a consultant, I'm on the road and I'm traveling a lot. And my last ritual of the day, the very last thing I do before I go to sleep, is I always have a conversation with my husband. And it really doesn't matter that whether the time zones, whatever, even if I have to wake him up in the middle of the night. Sometimes he doesn't remember the calls, but it's a ritual that we've had. It's not only at the end of the day, it's the beginning of the day. So the very first person I talk to in the morning is my husband, and the very last person I talk to at night is my husband as well. And it's just something that we just agreed was going to be really important for us to maintain a closeness when we're both so incredibly busy and traveling so much.
And isn't it beautiful that it's a simple ritual? And that's why I want people to really hear this. And it's funny, Terri, I don't think I've ever shared this which I'm going to share now because you provoked this with your ritual. And that is, I think it's when people are willing, what's the small little things we're willing to do that create boundaries and create these wonderful opportunities to elevate our life, right? We all have our own personal definition of success and happiness. It's not about what the world thinks. It's what serves us. And you and your husband, I love that you said sometimes he may not remember it. Right? It's like, oh, yes, we did talk. Just act like you remember it. and I, because I'm on the road a ton. But when I am home, and I have to tell you that you're going to love this, and you can share this, I don't mind. But one of the things that's most important, and people need to understand, we live in Arizona. So I get to share this ritual simply because of where we live. This couldn't happen just if we lived anywhere. But it's the most exciting thing for me every day when we are actually both here and I'm in town at 4:30. Are you ready? At 4:30, like clockwork, no calls, nothing, everything's shut down. We meet in the pool. He usually starts the music. One of us will pick out the wine we're going to have, and we meet in our pool and we have a wine date. And we talk. We share it doesn't matter how bad or good your day is. I always believe there's a miracle. And we share with each other a celebration, something good that we can focus on for the day. And then we both have our own businesses. So we brainstorm. What issues are you facing? Anything I can help you think through. And I got to tell you, Terri, we have some of the most amazing conversations and get the best ideas from each other. And it's just a ritual, and we don't miss it.
Awesome.
Isn't that fun?
That's so fun. That's great.
Yeah. So it's all about the rituals. And I'm sure there's a lot of women listening as well as men. But if you were to give, and I know there's no scripts for my show, and we never really know what Holly's going to ask, and you've been down this path with me on stage, I would love to know, is there any nuggets of wisdom, any just few little things that you would share, especially with women out there that are saying, I am seeking a higher senior leadership role in whatever company they're at. And I just want to give the caveat, and I think you agree with this, not every woman or man is seeking a higher level of leadership. You can be really happy doing what you're currently doing, right? And own that. But for those that are seeking something, and especially women, any advice you'd give them on how to throw their name out there, or what you've learned in your journey of what to not do or to do in this journey?
Absolutely, Holly. And I know, and you're going to chuckle here because I know you heard me say this when we were on stage together. And that is a sort of a little ditty that I try and share with our women, which is around less wishbone, more backbone. And what I mean by that is I think so many, and I know I did this myself, is that so many women, we work really hard. We're really, really dedicated to achieving the best outcomes that we possibly can. We really spend a lot of time in supporting our team, supporting others, and really giving our all. But so much of that is really as a result of sort of keeping our head down, working really hard, and hoping that we're going to get recognized. And that to me is what we, refer to, or I refer to as the wishbone. The more backbone is actually raising your head and actually having the courage to make some strategic asks, to actually challenge and to make those asks around the things that you want. Speak to your immediate leader or boss or supervisor and make sure that they're really aware of what your aspirations are, to actually make the strategic asks around, if it's a client meeting as a consultant, and maybe you haven't had that chance to get exposed in that situation, to have the ask to say, I would really appreciate joining that meeting as well as part of my overall advancement. So whatever it is, it's around sort of raising our heads up and around less of the wishbone, more of the backbone, to really think about those strategic asks. Because honestly, every single time I raise my head and I ask for something, I can honestly tell you I was never refused. And the normal reaction from my male counterparts or from my other female colleagues as well was, of course, I never knew you wanted to do that. And so I just think it's really important that we don't necessarily wait for it to come to us, but we actually drive our own destiny in that regard and have the backbone to make more asks and to challenge others around us.
And I absolutely love that. The wishbone versus backbone. And I don't think there isn't a person who's listening that wouldn't go, wow, I've either been there or I'm so relating to that. And we do it with all great intention. We think if we just keep our nose to the grindstone and keep doing a great job, someone's going to notice, and my boss or someone. And yet they are noticing, but nobody can read your mind. Right? They don't know what your aspirations are. And so when you say, raise your head, raise your hand, Terri, you'll love this. There's a client I've been doing a lot of work with in the women in leadership space. And what's fascinating to me, we've been doing like ongoing year-long programs. And it just occurred to me as you were talking, one of the biggest takeaways, which it's still mind-boggling for me, this is such a big step, but how many women will see an opportunity or a posting within their company and they will analyze it. And if they don't see that they qualify for 8 to 10 out of the things that they're looking for, they don't even throw their name in the hat. Right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And yet what we found is, and what we've encouraged them to do is, what do you have to lose? Even if you only have a few of those things, if you're aspiring and that interests you, throw your name in the hat, because what you just said, Terri, is exactly right. No one would have known you were even interested if you didn't put your hand up and throw your name in the hat. And it's amazing what's happened with some of these women. Like, some of them have thrown their name in the hat, and yeah, they didn't get it, but guess what happened? They were like, 5 people are like, we had no idea you were even interested. So now we're putting your name at the top of the list for the next opportunity. So it's kind of creating yourself your own billboard without feeling you're being, I think women struggle with feeling, am I being selfish or am I being self-centered? No, you're actually doing, here's a good one, Terri, you'll love this. If we could flip it and do a paradigm shift in how we view things, I believe we're doing the world a disservice by holding back our gifts.
Completely agree.
Look, we could have so much fun. We could just keep going. Yeah. I get to it's by leveraging the best. When you actually learn how to say yes to where you can be leveraged, everyone wins. We could spend, and you have so much good wisdom, and you wrote, and I just have to ask just a quick nugget of this. You wrote another beautiful article, and it was about pouring the tea. Do you remember that one? That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Will you shed a little light on that one?
Absolutely. So, this is many, many moons ago, when I was, and I won't name the company, but I was made partner in a different consulting firm, not Deloitte. And this is probably about 20, just over 20 years ago now. And I attended the first partner meeting, which was really around the healthcare life sciences, group of partners, as part of the European practice. And there were 38 partners in the room, and I was the only female. And the meeting was being held in London. And in those days, the tradition in London was that the tea trolley would come in round about 3:00 in the afternoon. And one of the ladies would wheel that in and leave it there. And the interesting thing was, out of this group of about 38 of us, with myself being the only one, everybody looked at me, and everybody then looked at the tea trolley. And the assumption was that I was going to pour tea for these 38 gentlemen or 37 gentlemen in the room. And I realized right then that if I did that, life would never be the same again. So I was determined that I was not going to pour the tea. And I used humor to actually say, I'm happy to pass the teapot, but you all have a hand and arm to pour your own tea. And everybody burst out laughing. But to me, it's a fun thing, but I think it just illustrates again how, we can use humor, but we can also ensure that through humor, we actually do make a stance to say, we are equal, and we really need to be treated in the same way, and not that assumption that there are certain roles that we do that men don't necessarily need to do. And so that was a lesson to myself, but the real lesson was more around really thinking about how you can use humor in those situations as well to get your message across.
And you can hear me giggling and smiling. I just love that story and the visual, right? Like, I'm just having the best visual of that room. And yet, what's kind of neat about this? And I think we're in a landscape now today, Terri, more than ever, where because women have been standing up and really, just moving forward in the leadership space, there's a lot of amazing men out there that are they're championing the women, and they're saying, just tell me what I can do. They want to sponsor women. They want to be the ambassadors. They're showing up saying, I don't know what to do. Just tell me what to do, right? What can I do to support you? And so to me, this is, again, tying this out. It's all about inclusion. This is about all of us being together and saying, how can we celebrate the best of you, regardless of your culture, your background, your education, or your gender?
Exactly. I mean, you heard me talk about my story early on, and I can honestly say that the individuals that have had the most impact in my life and in my success and have been there to really coach me and to support me have been men throughout. And it's really, really important, I think, particularly now that we really embrace that and recognize that, you know, so many of our male colleagues, they really, really do want to be able to help. They're really engaged in this conversation. They recognize themselves that we really need to create this inclusive environment. But, you know, they need some help at times to get engaged in that conversation, but recognize that they really, you know, they really are there for us all, as we should all be there for each other, irrespective of our gender, our ethnicity, our sexual orientation. This is all about really people having that respect for everybody and looking for ways in which we can be inclusive in everything we do every day, throughout all of the actions that we take.
It's so well put. And it's one of the things, and I know I've said this to you on numerous occasions, I'm such a big fan and champion of what you're doing and what Deloitte's doing to say we're standing up for inclusion. And I just think it's magnificent. And I want everybody in the world to see and be able to say, hey, if they're doing it, we can do it too. It's just powerful stuff, Terri. And I'm just so grateful. And, you know, and I know we're getting ready to tie this up. I just would love, one of the things I love to ask all of my guests, and I'm going to, you know, I typically will take you back to your 25-year-old self. But with you, you know, we can go back to the young girl laying bricks. We can go back to the chemistry and your master class, right, in the classes, which really provoked your amazing interest. When you go back to that younger woman, and maybe it's just in her early 20s, who you are today, when you look back at her, what advice would you give that young woman based on the entire journey and all of life experiences and where you are today? What advice would you give her looking back at her?
Always maintain your inner star, your inner desire, your inner aspiration. So have that North Star and never give up on that, and surround yourself with individuals that where you can have the courage to actually take chances, but know if they don't go quite the way you expected them to. And I don't mean to say fail, because I've taken a lot of chances and some of them haven't necessarily worked out the way but I always really stayed true to my North Star around, you know, from the point of view, I really wanted to be successful, but I wanted to be successful with integrity. I wanted to ensure that I maintain my personal and my professional integrity. So looking back now, it's really from the point of view of recognizing that even when things didn't go that well, I managed to maintain that ability to be true to my North Star around my overall aspirations, but also not to get discouraged. And I think I learned to have that resiliency to brush myself off and to try again, and have the courage to go forward. And I think that all stemmed from those early advice and the early sort of chats I used to have with my father, where he would always say, yes, you can. And he was there for, you know, I had a failed marriage that was really, really, really difficult to deal with. And he again was right there to say, you're going to be fine. Yes, you can. Just pick yourself up, brush yourself down, get going. You have so many other amazing strengths. You're going to be fine. And so I think it is just really believing in yourself, no matter how difficult it is at times, and having that North Star. And I truly believe if you can believe in yourself that you can do it, you really can do it.
Mm. And I'm just sitting here with my eyes closed as I'm listening to you. And something many people don't know is I had a failed marriage that, you know, I just started coming out and talking a little bit about it. But my father, Terri, is the one that's always been there for me. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, he's the one when I was crumbling saying, you can do this. You will be better. You will be okay. And this too shall pass. And you said a word, resilience. And I just don't want anyone to miss out. To me, resilience is one of the most beautiful words and beautiful qualities, because life is never perfect, right? We have our ups, we have our downs. It's how do we grow through the downs? As I like to say, do you let your trials refine you or define you?
Exactly.
I believe it's truly about how we take all of this stuff and how we allow it to make us either better or bitter. And it's, you and I live in the lens of, it's about refining us and what can we do to become an even better version of us. And that North Star, and maybe for some people that's knowing what your soul's highest calling is. For some people that's going to be, are you aligning your choices to your values? And such beautiful advice. Oh my gosh, we could keep going. I'm thinking we do a whole nother segment and we'll just talk about resilience. All right.
Sounds good.
Well, I just can't thank you enough, my friend. You are such a gift, such an amazing person, new friend in my life. And most of all, I'm going to keep saying it, the epitome of authentic leadership. So thank you, Terri.
Thank you, Holly. It's been a privilege. It really has.
Well, I can't wait to see what we're going to do next. I know there's many things coming around the corner, and we'll just be making a difference and continue to reach out. And Terri, if anybody has a question or they want to learn more, would you like them to reach out to me first, or how best to find you on LinkedIn? What would be the ideal?
LinkedIn would be great. Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. And then they can read all these great nuggets of even more stories with all your great wisdom and these wonderful stories you put out there. I love it. The articles. All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, Terri.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.